Thank you guys, and just wait with me a couple minutes, and then we'll get started. All right. Okay, I think we've got enough people here. So I'm going to get started here. If anybody has some questions, please feel free to use the question system on there. I'm going to be checking on that as we go along. I will probably answer them all at the end of the presentation. I'll save some time at that time to go through them all and just hit them one by one. So if I don't get it right away, that's okay. Like I said, I'll come back and hit those questions before we finish up. All right. So again, like I said, this is SolidWorks tips and tricks. Just wanted to show you some things that a lot of people don't really know about SolidWorks that can really help you out when you're doing work with SolidWorks and kind of give you an overview of what you can do with it. So let's get started here. So I'm going to switch over. Oops, excuse me. Switch over to SolidWorks itself and just bring up a normal part file. All right. And I wanted to talk about a couple of UI things first. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that with the command manager, the command manager is kind of SolidWorks' version of a ribbon interface that you would find in like a Microsoft Word document or Microsoft Excel or something like that. But unlike just the stock ribbon interface, it's actually got a couple of really neat things. One thing, of course, is the fact that it's customizable. Now, a lot of people know that you can come in and you can say, I want to customize things and find commands. And so I've got my features bar here, and I can go on the features and find some features that I don't have on here and drag them onto here and add them to it, drag things I don't need off so that they're not there anymore. One thing that people don't often know, though, is the fact that there is no set rules on this thing at all that say that you can only put features on the features toolbar. You can only put sketch commands on the sketch toolbar. One thing I really like to do in my system is I like to put some things that are commonly used on across the various toolbars. One of my favorite ones to do is to take the sketch tool, the sketch flyout tool, and put it up here on my features toolbar. I usually put it actually on a lot of these guys, the weldments and sheet mills and things like that. The reason I do it that way, if I say OK, I now have a sketch toolbar up here. Instead of having to go in and switch to the sketch plane or the sketch tab and then command the sketch, I can simply pick a plane, pick sketch from here. It's going to activate the sketch and then automatically switch over to the sketch bar of the command manager, so I have access to all my sketch tools. Very nice and useful for just quickly getting into stuff, and gets around that problem of, oh, I got to go and switch the tabs to get where I want. You can also do the same thing with the features stuff. Sorry, go in here, and I can come in under my commands, and for my I can put in like my extrude stuff onto the sketch bar, and then it's available to me when I go to expand. When I'm finished with my sketch, I can just click on it and extrude right from there. All right. Another one that a lot of people don't really know, when you're going in and drawing a sketch, and we automatically add relations to something. Right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to draw, say, a circle here, and I'm going to make these guys tangent to each other. and I'm going to fix the center point of this circle so that it can't move. And as you can see here, now I've got a fully constrained sketch here because of this verticality. But let's say I have multiple configurations of this part. I'm going to get out of the sketch for a moment, and I'm going to add in a separate configuration. So I'm just going to say add config 2. Right? And in config 2, I want to be able to vary the size of the circle, which means I'm going to have to remove some constraints with this sketch to make this guy smaller, right? Well, I can't do that right now. A lot of people think that to do that I'd have to create a new sketch or something like that. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that the relationships in a sketch are actually configurable. Now, to get to them, it's a little bit of a trick. You have to come into the display delete relations, and you have to see. Well, take a look at these guys. So if I look at my verticality one, I can actually choose which configurations that thing is applied to. So I can say I want to specify, and I only want it to be applied to. I only want this one applied to this configuration, right? So if I do that, accept. And then when I switch back over to my default configuration, here, let's switch real quick. Come over to my default configuration and look at this sketch again. Right. This guy, okay, didn't work on me this time. Hold on one second. I really only want this guy to be. I don't want it to select you. I just want to go on the specification. And accept. And it should be accepting that there. Now let me see. Let's go switch over to the other one and see if it took it this time. Okay. Trust me, this does work. It's giving me a little bit of a hiccup today, but yes, you can configure these guys to be on or off in a specific configuration, and so therefore you can change your sketch to have a different shape, different properties based on that, in addition to the normal things of changing the dimensions and stuff like that. Okay. Another thing, when you come in and actually go in and sketch, let's say, a circle, normally as I drag my sketch out, I just can drop it anywhere. But if I want, say I want to get it to drop to when I'm coming in and want this guy to go to specific increments, I can. All right, it's not doing it for me. Okay, hold on one second. Usually when we're drawing a sketch or a line or something, we can get the actually, I know what my problem is. My snaps haven't been set. Sorry. You can snap to. We don't want to snap to a grid. Never mind. No, we can have it so that when we hold the shift key down as we're sketching our geometry out, we can actually snap to unique values. So again, not there. Okay. Oh, okay. My snap at the moment is set to metric. So the values we're seeing here is we're in an inch document, but my snap is set to metric, so that's why you're seeing it. So you can see here it's actually popping to specific dimensions here, and when we let go, add a dimension to it, it will be at that dimension already. We don't have to go in and overwrite our value. So that's a nice little quick trick to get our sketches to work correctly. Again, my snap increment on this one is doing it in metric at the moment instead of inches, so it's displaying in inches. But if I went in and changed my units to be in millimeters, and then did the same thing again, if I hold this, you'll see it's snapping to discrete 10 millimeter jumps. Cool. All right. Now, we all know that when we first create a sketch in SolidWorks, usually it automatically rotates up to being normal to to our view screen so that as we start to sketch, we're looking straight at things. But we get out of this sketch and I say I'm looking at a different angle and I start a new sketch. Let's just say at the top plane. It usually just stays in this orientation. Some people like this, some people don't. Used to be in SolidWorks, it was a default behavior that it always reoriented itself to the normal for every new sketch you did. Then they took that away for a while. Some people didn't really like that very much, so they came back and they added in the functionality to have it rotate normal on the very first sketch you created. Nowadays, we have a new option so that when if we come in and turn on this one here, auto rotate view normal to sketch plane on the creation, and hit OK. Now, for every new sketch we create, I come in and say top plane and create a new sketch, it will automatically rotate normal to that sketch plane when we do it, so that we don't have to go back and try and have to go in and hit rotate normal every time we want. So that's pretty nice for when you're working in sketches and you're always wanting to be normal to it when you start. Sometimes it's a little difficult to work with if you're trying to work with a lot of model geometry that on a shape that you've already built. Okay, let's go in and take a look at some other parts stuff. Just check if there are any questions that come up yet. Nope, I think we're all good so far. Okay. Let's go and look at some stuff we've already got going here. I'll open up an assembly I've already got, and let's go look at some of the parts in here. All right. One thing that's really nice that a lot of people don't know about is if I create a sketch on a face and I say I want to go in and say I want to convert entities on that face, it always is going to select the outside loop of the face that I've selected, right? Which is nice if provided that's exactly what you want. But a lot of times you actually really want an inside loop of the face. And so if you're doing that, it gets to be a little bit more difficult because you got to go in and select all those things, right? Sketch for a moment. Take that out. All right. So one thing we can do, sketch again, is we can choose to say I want to select a loop, right? So if I come in and just say select loop on this as well, I get the choice to say I want to go inside or out. Right, in this case it's going down. It's in this one. What that'll do is it will get the entire outside profile of the edge we selected. In this case, we're just going to get this. The loop is just going to be the outside of this chamfer, which isn't really what we want. So another option we can use is select tangency. Tangency is going to go around and grab every tangent edge until we get to a closed situation like this. If I do that, and then say I want to convert entities, boom, then I just get those profiles selected. A lot easier than having to go through and select all the pieces individually. All right, let's go in and open up another part real quick. Go back over this guy. And we'll go with that for a moment. A lot of times we'll have features in a part that we want to be able to reuse those features in some other part, right? So I have, say, this guy, this cut extrude feature on here, which has got a sketch on here. And let's say I wanted, for some reason or other, I wanted to use it in my other part, right? I'm going to go in and tile my windows for a moment. I'm going to just minimize this guy so that we don't have to see him. Do a little bit bigger. Right. We can take any feature we want. Actually, I'm going to get out of the sketch that was on this one. We don't need it. You can take a feature from one part, do a control drag onto another part. So I can come in here and control drag this onto. Yep. Just not. Help me out here today. Come on. All right. Okay. All right. He's just not liking me today. All right. All right. I'm going to move on from that one. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Usually this does work. Again, we can take a feature, any feature that's available in one part, and simply drag it to another one, so that we can go and reuse that feature on another model. Take like, where's the other way? These guys all had their cuts and extrudes done there. You know, just not liking me on this one today. Sorry about that. Maximize this part for a moment. Another one a lot of people don't know about is customized views. We have a standard set of views in SolidWorks, which includes an isometric, diametric, and trimetric view, but they're based on what our front, top, right view planes are. And if we sometimes choose a set of views that are going to be different than what we want, or something like that, is going to end up with this orientation being a little bit different than what we really want to see on our drawing, we might want to come in here and set up our own views. So one thing we can do is come in and say, I want to look at look at, say, this view, and actually, sorry, if I hold my control key, or my tab key, sorry, I can rotate by certain increments. So, and these are, again, our user settable. So I can come in and say, I want to rotate about that much, and have this particular view be available to me on a drawing. Now I can come into my view orientations pane, and I can say I want to create a new view. Give this my ISO. All right. And now, when I come in and let's say I want to make a drawing of this part, I'm just going to make a standard drawing. C size. And I'm going to come in and make this one. I'll use. So get this guy. Here's my front. Let's see, make this normally our front, and projected views, and this one would be this and this. All right. But we can also come in here, say I want to create a new model view, still pick the arm, but choose my alternate ISO view and throw it in there. So it's not projected off these like a normal view, but it is a view that we can get on our drawing to see exactly what we want to see. All right. Okay. Let's go look at, let's go back and look at our model real quick. Let's look at this guy. Another one that a lot of people don't really know about is sometimes people get a particular model, kind of say like this one, where you've got a lot of detail into it, and you may have some performance issues with it. Things are acting slowly, not quite building correctly, that sort of stuff. And you might be wondering, why is that? What's wrong with it? What's causing this model to act slowly and performance-wise? Well, we have a statistics tool in SolidWorks that actually lets us come in and look at our model and figure out what things on it are actually causing are taking the most time to process. So if we look in here at my model, we can actually see that most of the highest percentage of both time or percentage of time of rebuilding this model is actually in these patterns up here. These patterns up here at the top are accounting for probably almost over 50% of the rebuild time for this entire part. Now the whole rebuild time on this thing's only about a half a second, so it's not all that bad. But if you had a very complex part, this could be a big problem. So this may tell you that, hey, maybe I don't want to use patterns for this part. Maybe I want to use a different way of creating these things so that we can kind of go about it a slightly different way, figure out that sort of stuff. So, all right. Any questions so far? Everybody's doing good? Okay. All right. No questions yet, so we're doing okay. All right. Let's see here. Another one. Let me pull up the assembly here real quick. All right. Another one I actually wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to make a drawing of this guy just for a second. So I'm going to come in here and say I want to make a new drawing of the part. And once again, size, I'm going to put a drawing view on here. Again, we can do all the normal stuff, but I'm going to put just a simple dimension on here. So I'm going to say from here to here. Right. Doesn't matter if it's the centers or not in this case. And then I'm going to take this drawing and save him. Right. And say save to. There we go. And I'm going to come back to my original part. I'm going to make a change to it. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to, let's make this dimension a little bit bigger. I'm going to make this guy 165. Right. I'm going to make the overall thing a little bit longer. Right. Going to make some changes. It's going to be a little bit flatter up here at the tip. That's okay. Now let's go back in and reopen that drawing. Okay. Actually, sorry, I forgot a setting. Let me close this real quick. I'm not going to save it. Turn my option on. And I turned it off after the last time I did this presentation. So give me 1 second. All right, there we go. So I just turned on an option there that's going to affect this behavior. What's going to happen here is when I open up this drawing, you'll see that this dimension is now highlighted in a color. By default, it's orange, but you can choose what you want, you want that color to be. And if I hover over it, it's actually going to show me what the previous dimension was. So this is telling me all the dimensions that have changed because of model edits since the last time I saved this drawing file. This is really nice, especially if you're working on a drawing of a model that may have been changed because someone else did some work on it or did some work on the model without doing updates to the drawing itself, or if you have external references in the model and the change, there were changes to the overall assembly that drove changes to the part, and so that when you open up this assembly, you're not sure, okay, or when you open up this drawing of the part, you're not sure what the critical dimensions actually changed or not. Once you do a save on this drawing, those are now the new applied dimensions, and so the next time it opens, they're not going to show up in the customized color. You can actually also choose to see the changed dimensions. It is under, actually, sorry, it's under that particular view. You can choose to isolate the changed dimensions, which basically says that if there's multiple dimensions on your drawing, you can come in here and say, I want to isolate them so that only the ones that are changed show up. Now in this case, obviously, I didn't put any other dimensions on there just to illustrate that. But if you did, you'd get this. And you'll notice here that while I'm doing that, I get a little icon next to my mouse that says, "Hey, I'm only looking at the changed dimensions." All right. I'm going to turn that back off, then we'll go back to the normal stuff again. All right. All right. Now let's go back and let's look at our assembly real quick. I'm going to go in here real quick, and I'm actually going to delete this pin for a moment. And you'll notice it disappeared on the other side. That is because we actually have a mirror going on here, so that everything on one side of this thing is actually a mirror of what's going on the other side. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in here for the moment, and we're going to suppress this mirror feature. Just to get it out of the way. And I have a existing pin already in this model that is I want to use it over here in this hole and connection, but it's going to have to be a little bit different size. Right now, this pin is obviously a little bit shorter than it would need to be over here on this side. So there's a couple ways I could go about doing this. A lot of people will take this and drag him out, create a copy of it, and then go in and insert it into the hole. But an easier way to do it is to use copy with mates. Copy with mates is really nice. When I come in here and say I want to create a copy of this guy, it says, okay, here's the selected components. So I'm going to say next, and it's going to say, okay, these are the mates that are applied to this. It's got a concentric mate, a coincident mate, and another concentric mate, which is actually tying the pin to the bushing bar down here underneath. So I'm going to say I want to replace the concentric geometry that is in this location with the geometry over here. So this is going to say I want to make it concentric to this face. And then my coincidence is going to be to the top face of the new arm. Right. Now, the concentricity mate over here, I really don't need to go in and apply it. I could, but right now this guy is actually being held concentric by something else. So I don't really have to do this. Now, if I just accept this, this is still pinned in place, which is actually going to say I'm going to allow you to go do it again. I can go and actually use that same function to set this pin over in this hole. And if I just want to use the same exact face again, I can simply say repeat, and boom, then I have the new pin here. Now, once I've finished off doing those things, I can exit out of this guy, and now I have all my mates in here. Now, one thing about this is, obviously right now this pin is too short to fit into this hole. Right? But if I pick on the pin, you'll notice that up here it's showing me the configuration name of the pin, and it actually is showing me all the possible configurations in it. So I can come in here and simply pick a larger configuration. I can choose to say whether this is applied to just this configuration of the assembly or all configurations, or to specify. Let's pick this one. Oops. Okay, so that one was a little bit long. So I'm going to go back again and say 50. Again, I want it to do to all the configurations. And boom, there's my new pin in place. Obviously, I can go in and do a snapper in here. Oops, I actually didn't have that mate in there before. So we've got to come in and add an extra mate to hold this back in place. We could have done it with during the copy with mates, but by doing this, we can show you something else that a lot of people don't know about, which is how we can do smart mating. Smart mating is really nice. I've got two concentric faces here that I want to mate up. I'm going to pick on one face and hold my mouse down. I'm just going to tap the Alt key. And once I do that, you'll notice that it turns to a sort of a paperclip shape, and then it shows me an alignment here. This is going to say that these two are going to be concentrically aligned to each other. I'm going to let go. And now I accept And these guys are concentrically aligned. And if I come in here and pull around, you'll see that the mechanism works exactly the way you want it to go too. Right. Now, if I wanted to go in here and say I want to add in, instead of using the mirror functionality this time, I want to add in the other bits of this thing, the tie rod, the arm itself, the tip here, and the pin on the other side. Well, if I come in here and take all these four, right, and actually this guy, and I'm just going to say I want to open all those documents. So they're open in the background in their own windows. Let's just go back over to our assembly again. If I come in and just want to do a traditional, say you want to insert components, right, I can see here that here are the documents that are open: the arm, the tip, and the internal pin here. I can pin this to stay here. So now I can come in here and simply select the arm, drag it out. Now, in 2015 now, previously to this, we had to drop it in place and then sort of rotate it to get it to be aligned the way we wanted to see it. Now we can come in here and say I want to rotate around a certain axis. So I want to say I want to rotate 90 degrees around the x-axis. And hey, there's my arm in approximately the right orientation. So I'm just going to drop it here. And what I can do is I can choose a different part to come in here. So I'm going to come in and drag the pin in. Right? And let's say I could put it already in the hole. You'll notice here that I'm getting in a mate reference, or a smart mate here. This is because we've created what's called a mate reference on the pin, and I'll go and show you how that works in a second. But once I drop it in there, already made it in place. And then I can bring the tip in. Again, bring it in here and say, okay, I want to rotate it, say 90 degrees around the x-axis. Right? Drop it in place. And once I get all these guys in here, I can just simply close out of this, and all the parts are in here in the moment. And then again, I can come in here and mate this guy in place. Now, normally to mate this into position on here, we would need probably about 3 mates. We would need a concentric mate to line the pins up. We would need a coincident mate at the top or the bottom to place up here, and then we might, we might need a third mate to control the angle that this swings through. We can do all that with our normal mating stuff and just traditional mates, but we can also do this by using special kinds of mates. Now these we do have to invoke them, but we're going to call them, we're going to use a mechanical mate. And I'm sorry, we're going to use our advanced mate, and nope, mechanical mate, sorry. Call my hinge mates, right? So this is going to say, what's my concentric selection? So I'm going to say these two are concentric, and what's coincident? So I'm going to pick the top face of this and the bottom face of the washer here. Okay. We should be grabbing this face. Alright, not liking that one. For some reason, let's go in and clear this selection. Try the bottom face. Might be a little bit of a cone to that washer or something. Alright, let's try the... okay. Again, no, it should be. Let me try just placing it to this one. Alright. Again, sorry about that. It's obviously not liking me today. Alright, well, sorry about that. It's apparently not liking my geometry for some reason. Normally, again, this should be working. What we can, in this case, say is take the let's say the front plane of the arm and say the top plane of the entire assembly. All right. There may be a slight bug here or something. This is kind of interesting. I haven't had to do this to me before on this guy. Let's take the front plane of the other arm. Okay. Okay, it's obviously not working in VJ. We can also say, we can specify the angle limits, and we can define two things in here that are actually going to give us an angle that the hinge moves through. Unfortunately, I can't really do it without getting this part in here first, and for some reason, like I said, it's not really working for me here. Let me try one last thing. Try these two. Nope, it's just really not liking those selections today. So I apologize. Normally, again, this would work fine, but it's just not getting there today. So in this case, we would probably have to go back and do our normal mates. I'll have to go look at this guy later and figure out what's going on with him for them to get from working correctly. Let's go in and let's take a look at one thing we have here. We have several pieces of hardware around this in this part. And if I went in and let's go in here and just take out everything but the one of these guys. So I'm going to take those two. I'm going to take all the rest of these guys and just delete them for a moment. Now, we could do what they did to this originally, which was that they went in and placed these guys individually on this thing, but that's a lot of work, and that's not really what I want to do, and you know, it's just kind of a pain in the butt. In fact, we could probably do it with all these guys. If I took all of these pieces out, if I take okay, this, not this one, but control select. Take these guys out. Sure. Through. So I'm going to just delete all those parts. Actually, they're in the sub assembly, so I'm not going to. We'll just leave them there for the moment. But if they were individual parts, we could take them out there. Basically what I want to do is I want to put only one of them in and then pattern the rest. So we can do that by simply doing a component or a pattern-driven pattern. So I'm going to come in here and select my washer, my bolt, and my washer. Not this. There we go. Not the housing itself. And then I just want to say I want to use the existing feature as my item to pattern to. I'm going to say OK. And then, boom, I have all of my other components patterned based on that. If I make a change to something in here where the placement of those holes changed or the number of holes changed or something like that, we could actually, that's going to actually cause this to update. So if I came in here and said, and I went in here and said, okay, I really want it to be, the spacing is going to be, say, 20 millimeters instead of 23, and we're going to put 3 in here. We're going to be a little bit, they're going to be hanging out in space, but that's okay. I go back over and look at my assembly. That pattern has updated accordingly, and I didn't have to go in and go and add more parts to it and move more parts to it. Right? All right. Sometimes one other thing we want to do when we're working in assemblies is we want to go in and look inside stuff, looking into the assembly. And we can do that typically by doing our section view tools, which we'll come back to in a second. But one of the other things we want to do is we want to come in and just be able to hide a component very quickly. Normally we have to pick the component and say, okay, I want to hide it, okay, and I got to go in and find it in the tree and say I want to show it again, that sort of stuff. Another thing we can do, instead of that, is simply hold down our Shift key and drag our mouse across it. All right. All right. Why aren't you working today? Okay. Not working on me again today. Sorry about that. All right, let me see if my option got. Nope, sorry, nothing there. Once again, it's there we go. Now it's working. Okay, I hold my Sorry, had the wrong key combination set. By default, it's the tab key. So if I hold down my tab key and pull my mouse over a component, it will hide that component. If I hold down the Shift and the tab key and then move my mouse over a component, move my mouse over a hidden component, it's going to become visible again. So this is a really quick way to go in here and hide things, get in and out, see what's going on inside of a model. Then hold tab, hover over it, disappears, Shift tab, over it, and comes back. Now, a few minutes ago we were talking about using the section view tool, and again, section view tool the dynamic section view tool has been around for a really long time. It's a really popular tool. People really like it. And it's got a lot of neat things to it. We can come in here and we can create multiple sections, just like this, where we've done this for a long time. One of the problems, though, is that a lot of times what we want is, instead of this, we really want to see the opposite of this. We only want to see one section of the part removed and leave the rest of it. So another way we can go about this is by using what we call the zonal selection method. If I turn that on, it's going to show me all the zones created by the various planes or faces or whatever we've suggested or we've selected. And we can come in here and I can even go in and say I want to add in a third section and I want to use it saying the right plane. But here I want to pull this guy forward a bit. So it's about to here, say. All right. And then again, we can choose to say, okay, I only want to remove this one zone of the possible 8 zones that we're describing here. Once we do that, okay, didn't like my position selection. I should bump that up a little bit. Okay. All right. So what's happening here is I'm hitting a particular place where I'm creating like a 0 thickness body or something like that. So I'm just going to turn off section 3 so we get this set. Nice. Something in this particular model just doesn't like being sectioned that way. So I'm going to say pull this one back a little bit. Alright, sorry about that again. Again, this model just is not wanting to behave too much today. take this and just set them back to 0 and try, say, the other side. Try picking, say, this zone. There, worked on that side. So now I can have this as my section view, and I can see into this the way I want to. And also, we can save this as a defined view. So I can say section view 2 or whatever, and so I can come back to it. So I can always come back and turn it on. I can see it in the drawing, things like that. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Looks like we're not. Like any no questions have come through so far. Okay. All right. Another one dealing with assemblies. Probably a lot of you have run across this type of situation before. You're working in an assembly and you want to reorder your assembly tree around so that things fall in the order that you want to. Maybe you're using the option to drive your bill of materials based on assembly order. And so you want to put, say, all of your assemblies at the top of the tree. Well, in this case right now, I've got 3 sub-assemblies, a couple of parts, and then another sub-assembly. Now, if I grab this sub-assembly right now and I try to drag them up in the tree, I get this, where it's trying to insert the sub-assembly into the other assembly, so it'll become a child of that sub-assembly. It's not really what I want. I really want to just drop it underneath here, right? And so it used to be we'd have to go in and drop it underneath another part, and then go and try to reorder stuff here and all that. It was always kind of a pain in the butt. Well, what we can do now is, instead of just dragging it and dropping it somewhere, if we hold down our control key while we're dragging it, it's going to automatically say put it underneath there. It's going to turn off that functionality that says drop it into, drop it into the other assembly. So now this is, okay. It didn't do that. It created a copy of it. Sorry about that. Let me delete this guy. There. There we go. Sorry about that. Hold on one second here. There we go. Now it's doing it. There we go. So, again, pulling it up, and then we can reorder the tree accordingly without it being without having to try and flip things around and flip back and forth to try and get it correctly. Cool. All right. Anything else? Let me see. What else do we got for you here? Okay. Another selection tool, another way to make things really easy to see is, again, is by using isolate. So once again, we can come in and select just certain components, and I can say I want to isolate these guys. So I just see those on the screen. This is nice. I don't have to go in and choose all the other stuff and say I want to hide it and get rid of it, all that sort of stuff. I can come in here and just go in and say, you know what, I just want to isolate those guys. I can save my settings of this, so I can always come back to this. Again, save it as a display state. And if I'm done with it, I can just say I want to exit isolate. That's it. Nice and easy, nice quick little way to go in and hide things and get back to them so you can see them later. All right. That's pretty much most everything I had for you guys today. Is there any other any questions that anybody has? Any concern or any things that somebody's wondered if you were able to do, things like that? If anybody has one, please feel free to put in under the questions field. How about folders? Okay, so yes, we can create folders in the tree. One nice thing is I can come in here and say I want to add a new. I can pick components and say I want to add to a new folder. One of the really nice things these days is that you don't have to select components that are contiguous to each other in the tree. I can pick several components in here and say I want to say add to a new folder and give it a folder name. Right, use stuff. Right, and then come in here, and again I can move the folder around in the tree if I wanted to, so that I can place it in the order that I want. I can come in here and add things that I wanted to. I can add stuff that's already in the tree into existing folders simply by dragging it in there. If there are things in the folder that I don't want to be there, I can simply come in and pull them out. All right, here. It's not letting it. That one there, but oh, there we go. Now it's pulling out. There we go. So, does that answer your question, Fred? Okay, cool. Let's see here. Okay. Give me 1 second here. I got a question here, but the screen it comes in a little bit smaller. So let me read through it real quick. Okay, yes. So the pin, the smart mate on the pin. So when we created this pin, there's actually a functionality. It's a piece of reference geometry, just like planes and axes. It's called a mate reference. So we created a pin, created a mate reference on this thing that was at the edge where the cylindrical face and the planar face met, right? And so by placing that mate reference on here, and we didn't give it a name or anything like that. We just said leave it as a default orientation, default type, any orientation. When this part gets inserted into an assembly, right? So let's go back over to my assembly here. So let's just grab pull them out a little bit. When I come in here and say I want to insert this component, and I take my pin here, it automatically infers that as if you were doing a smart mate. So it's the same thing as if I picked on that face or picked on that edge and hit my Alt key and then dragged it over geometry. So all it's doing is looking at that whatever geometry was defined by the mate reference and using that to apply the mates. So just by having the mate reference there, it's all it needs. And when I drag it in and drop it, boom, it's automatically got the mates on this guy. And if I come in here and look, you can see on this pin. Oh, come on. Now it's being a little bit slow on me there. Come on. Oh, if I come in here and say I want to if I want to come in and I want to view my mates on this pin, you'll notice here that it's got a concentric mate and a coincident mate automatically applied because the edge was where the concentric face and the planar face that the coincident was applied to are a meet, so it applies it to both faces. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions from the group? One of the things while we're talking about view mates, one nice thing with SolidWorks is if I select multiple components and I come in here and I say I want to see view mates, it's going to show me the mates between those components. So this is a nice way if you say, okay, I have a part here that's got 50 mates because it's applied to 20, it's connected to 20 different components, but I want to figure out just what are the mates between two specific components. If I pick those two and say view mates, I'm only going to see the ones between those two components. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Oops, I've got a hand up. Let me see. Dave. Okay. I see Dave O'Black. I see that you've got a hand up. If you have a question, there's a questions pane on the in the little dashboard that's on your screen. You can type it in there. We can I can answer it for you. Oops. All right. So in a drawing view, can I add a dimension to usually on a circular edge without having to create a small cheat line? Yeah. Let's go in and just do one real quick. Let's see if this is. Let me see. Make sure I'm understanding what you're asking about. So if I come in here and make a drawing of this guy, and I see I have one more question. Let me go take care of this one real quick, and then I will come back to yours, Fred. I don't want that. I want to. All right. So your question about the dimension. Are you saying that if you wanted to say like create a horizontal dimension, something like this? Yes, you can do that without having to create a cheat line. You can also, again, this is a circular edge. Again, it's not going to, it's going to allow you to pick those without and place dimensions on them without having to create any orientation things. Now, one thing that is nice now in 2015 is if you want to create an angular dimension between, say, this edge and this one. Actually, let's get a good example of it. Okay, let's say I want actually say I wanted to create an angle between, actually this isn't a great example either because it's doing it automatically. Let me get, hold on one second, let me get it on here. Yeah, if I'm picking an angular thing like this, if I pick a point at the end of it, I can choose this by this little quadrad what direction I want to make the dimension go into, right? So I wasn't going to pick that one, but I pick this vertex. Oops. All right, do it again. Again, here where I can grab that corner. There it is. And I can pick this direction and place it automatically. So a lot of cases where we used to have to go in and create a little cheat line to do it, we can now do it by using that triad. So basically you pick the angle and then you pick the corner that you want to measure it from. Okay. Okay. All right, let me see. Okay, so let me grab this one other question. All right, so let's go back. Dave said let's use the assembly. So let's go back over to my assembly. And again, let's make a drawing of this guy. And so again, if I went in and created a dimension, like I said, like if you wanted to do a dimension from, say, a circular edge there to back here or something like that, and you wanted it to be, instead of being like the center of the edge over here, you want it to be at the end, you could do it simply by taking your condition setting and saying to max, and then this is going to the end. You don't have to draw in a little bit of geometry or something like that to connect it. Is that what you were asking about? Okay, and so yeah, that's the way to do that. That's the easiest thing to do is just by doing the arc conditions there. Now, one other question that was in here, Frederick, you said how much time would it take to change from patterns? Are you saying like going in and taking something that was created with a pattern and then switching it to being not created by a pattern? Is that what you're asking for? Okay. Well, there's no simple, like, okay, press a button and say and do this. You can dissolve a pattern. So if I go into back to the tip, all right, get this guy back, and actually you can no, you can't do it as a feature pattern. Sorry. You can dissolve patterns at the assembly level, so you can take an assembly feature and dissolve it. But the let me check. I think it was in here. Yeah, we can't do it at the feature level, unfortunately. So in this case, we would have to go in and delete the pattern, and then go in and edit the sketch or something like that to go in and recreate it as a with sketches for each one of them, things like that. If it was an assembly pattern, yes, we can dissolve it, and then the instances become individual components. But you can't do it as at the feature level in a part. Does that answer your question? All right. Any other questions? Oops. Yes, as Randy pointed out, you could do a sketch pattern instead, which will actually have better performance than a feature pattern. But in this particular case, it would. It might not in all cases. Sketch patterns can be really complex as well, and so you might have to play around with it a little bit and see what works best in the particular case that you're working on. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to finish up. If anybody has any other Any other questions they think of later, please feel free to either send us an email at support@thesolidexperts.com or give us a call at our main phone number, 954-772-1903, option 4, and any one of our technical support people will be able to help you out or answer any questions you have. With that, we're going to wrap up the presentation. So I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. Hope this was helpful for you and some time well spent. Yeah, thank you, Fred. You're very welcome.